Okay guys, welcome back to chapter 4 of the Forgemaster Masterclass. So this chapter we're going to focus on the beard. We're going to do too much with it per se, but just want to bring it in line with sort of the rest of the upper body. So if you remember, this is currently dynameshed. So if we have a look in here, we should be able to find got a fair bit of resolution on there, but obviously not enough to start holding up some details. So I'm just going to grab the concept, which is just open in the background. So you can see here that sort of originally, let's just jump to Photoshop. Originally we do want it sort of forking off at the side. Forget my brushes to do what I want them to do. So it should be forking off in sort of like two little plaits or braids or whatever they actually are called in beards. So we're going to do the same sort of thing on here. So to do that, I'm going to start chopping a few pieces out. Just going to use the clay build tool. I'm going to set it to Z sub mode. It's going to allow us to eat in to the actual beard itself. And I'm not really caring about the polygons at the moment. I just want to sort of create a massive cut down the center so it's easier to work with. Smooth things back out a bit, and I'm just going to keep knocking it back, and then eventually I'm going to hold down Control and drag in the background just to smooth out those polygons which we've kind of just destroyed. And turn on transparency mode so I can just remove this bit from sort of clipping inside his body. And I'm going to do that with the move brush. And just generally smooth things down a bit. So let's just bring that in there. Take a look what we've got. So yeah, something a bit like that. We really need to work on the flow of it. I might even start attaching various parts to it to make sure it works right. We'll see how it goes. Let's just smooth it down a bit more. Possibly use the inflate brush, which should add a bit more of a roundedness to it. And then the Damien standard brush. If you guys, quick note about the Damien standard brush, if you guys don't have it, it's available from Lightbox. It's not always in the brush menu here. But if you go to Lightbox and go to brush, and then we go to standard, you see that we have the Damien standard brush right there. So grab that if you need it. So let's just see if we can start getting the flow on here. So it looks like I might actually start having to create this out of separate parts, as I don't think we're really going to get the result that we want just by hard sculpting onto it. Especially since we're getting these annoying little bits down the bottom, around the back. Just going to Control drag on the background again, try and eliminate these bits. Well, we might start getting there. But I'm going to show you a little technique that we can use for various different things. Just going to use the move tool to just start moving things back up a little bit as we're going to make additions to it. So let's just shorten the beard up for now. And we're going to click on Tools. We're going to grab a Sphere 3D and make Polymesh 3D. We're going to go back to our character and we're going to do Append and click PM 3D Sphere. And turn on transparency so I can actually see it. And now we're going to go to Deformation and I'm going to turn the size down. Going to grab the move tool, move it up to position, and I'm actually just going to move it off to the side. So now what we're going to do is turn up the resolution a little bit and press Dynamesh, and go back to draw mode. So I'm going to turn off transparency, and I'm going to start sort of melding this in with the beard that we already have. And I'm going to start stretching this out towards the bottom. I'm going to see if I can try and capture that sort of shape that we had going on in the concept, where it kind of comes out and in, and then adds a little bit at the end. Do control drag just so we've got some more resolution to play with, and then I'm going to switch to the inflate tool to kind of suck it in the middle a bit. Smooth it out to try and keep the shape from collapsing in on itself. Switch back to the move brush so I can sort of change the form of it a bit more. So this is going to look a bit of a mess for now, but what we're going to do is go to Subtools menu. Just going to move this up until it's just above the beard. Going to go to Merge and then press Merge Down. Press OK. So now we have this new part of the beard which we just created. Two separate poly groups and two separate meshes just in one subtool. So I'm going to hold down Control and drag in the background, and that's going to merge the two together. It's slightly lower resolution than what I wanted, but we can always turn the resolution up and Control drag. Just move something around first of all, then Control drag. And now that has melded the two together. Still got two separate poly groups, but as you can tell, the edge flows actually match up now. It's part of the same mesh. So you can actually build a lot of objects by using that method. So from here, I'm going to go to Deformation, and I'm going to press Mirror. So that mirrors it over to the other side. Going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, and then Mirror and Weld, just to get that to match up. So we can see where we've got these sort of two sections now, and we can enhance that with the good old Damien Standard brush. Start putting in some creases. Well, I say creases, I mean hair. We haven't got the resolution to really detail this at the moment, but we're going to improve that over time. Probably a good idea to turn on symmetry, as I completely forgot to do that. So as a result, I'm just going to go to Mirror and Weld, so we've got all details on all sides. And now we can just start manipulating this a little bit more, so it sort of sits a bit more naturally on our character's face. Now the beard all the way through this process is going to always look a little bit strange because it is two separate meshes. The face and the beard are two separate meshes. When we actually create the character, I'm going to be attaching the beard to the guy's face, and I'm going to be doing it with a little bit of texture overlap. So it's going to be something which you have to manually do, as I haven't found a good way of doing it in ZBrush yet. But we'll see what we can come up with. That won't be until a little bit later on when it comes to the retopology and UV mapping stage, but we'll see what we can do there. So just use a combination of the move brush and Damien Standard to sort of start shaping the beard up a bit. At the moment it just looks like, well, a bit of a mass on his face. Mind you, I guess that's what beards are, and mine's getting pretty rough looking at the moment. It could really do with a shave, but I don't have the time or the inclination, so that's roughly what we were after. It actually matches up quite closely to the original idea, so that's not bad. Hey, what's the chances of that happening? Almost perfect. Cool. So we will add some asymmetry later on, but for now we just want to get everything else in for the time being. So what I'm actually going to do, just to kind of tidy this up a bit and give us the ability to really properly sculpt on it, I'm actually going to retopologize it. So I'm going to pretty much just going to use the clay build tool, so I've knock out a few bits and pieces where I need the neck to kind of be. Remember to select Z add again just to reset things back to how you wanted them. So just so it kind of blends a bit more naturally in with the throat and the rest of the face. Might bring that up a little bit more, so there we go. Alrighty, so what we're going to do now is just retopologize it. It's going to give us a nice sort of more accurate thing to sculpt on. So what we're going to do is what we did earlier on. We're going to duplicate the upper body. We're then going to duplicate the beard. Going to move the beard up to the top. Going to go to merge and press merge down. So now we have a version of the upper body where the beard is actually part of it. So that's going to enable us to get a really accurate edge loop around the edges of the beard and see exactly where we need the polygons. So from there we're going to click on our tool menu, choose a Z sphere, and we're then going to go to rigging. We're going to select a mesh. We're going to choose our upper body with the merged beard, and then we're going to turn off solo mode so we can actually see it, and then topology and edit topology. So I probably could use Z remesher to do the beard. However, when you're doing game characters, sometimes it's a good idea to just go ahead and retopologize things in the old-fashioned way, so you get the edge flow exactly how you want it. An extra benefit is that you could likely come back and use the low-res mesh that you already have to actually use in-game. So some areas where things are actually working and the edge flow and stuff is actually what we want, could come in handy, and we could also reuse them later on. So just joining up these polygons on the face. Again, the way that this works, pretty simple. We have the draw tool selected. Best select a really low brush size. We can click on the surface and it will create a vertex. Click again and it'll put down another vertex where it will actually join that up using an edge. Put four together and we get a polygon. If we want to select a vertex with which to create, so for instance I want to start creating an edge flow up here rather than down here because we have this vertex selected, hold down Control and click on the vertex that we want to do things from, and then we can draw out from there. So just in case you didn't catch it all the first time. So I'm going to be using quite large quads, as we don't need to have everything stupidly over the top at the moment. That's what subdividing's for. Again, you can see that I'm using quads. This, as I said earlier, is an old habit. There was a point where ZBrush really did not like quads. Triangles, sorry. The algorithms that they used to do smoothing and stuff has improved a lot, so they're not such a big deal. But I don't know, I guess I'm a bit stuck in my ways of using quads. That's because I find they're a bit tidier, and I'd rather not have any nasty surprises waiting for me when I'm actually sculpting, and just have things work as they're meant to. So try and take the extra time and make the edge flow work using quads rather than sticking a triangle in, unless they absolutely have to, or just can't be bothered. So not really a whole lot to say at this point, just following the flow of the beard. Making sure I've got nice large quads in there which are fairly equal. Failing when it comes to those ones there. So I made a bit of a mistake with this edge here, so I've got a strange little artifact going on. You can remove a vertex by holding Alt and clicking on it. And you can move vertices around using the move tool, the transpose move, rather than the move brush. So what you could do, if you were using the mesh that we're creating right now with the retopo tool, if you did want to use it for in-game as the game resolution, you could just take the actual mesh itself into Max or Maya, remove a couple of edge loops, and reduce it in the poly count a little bit, depending on how high the poly count is in the first place. And then UV map it and use that. But I've got this in mind for sculpting, because being a beard, we want a lot of hairs and fibre and that kind of thing showing up. So we really want to be able to carve a lot of detail into it, hair strands and bits and pieces. So I'm making sure that my quads are more or less evenly spaced and following some form of flow. You can see especially up here around the moustache area and the chin, definitely follows the edge flow around there. And we'll be diverging off here to do the edge flow for the for these individual sections. There's no real science behind retopology. It's just tedious, but it's one of those necessary evils, unfortunately. This is where I have to work out quite what I'm going to do to get everything to split off. You can use triangles if you like, but I prefer to use diamonds. And ZBrush, brilliant. Again, if you ever have ZBrush autosave while you're doing topology, just click the Edit Topology button again and it'll get back to it. So yeah, topology, very tedious. Put in the time and you'll get really nice topology. Use Z remesher if you really can't be bothered. I probably should have done, but I'll probably use it later on. So this is going hideously wrong, mostly because I can't see what I'm doing. So just trying to figure out the best thing to do here. Just going to remove those. And then I'm just going to carry on this edge flow around so I've got this lined up properly. And then I'm going to have to figure out how I can do the back of the beard, because obviously I can't see it. So I'm going to have to see if this little idea of mine will work. Let's try and get these into place and then I'll give it a test. So, being as though we've got pretty much all the forward-facing things in place now, we'd really like to be able to have a look around the back. So I'm going to see if we can actually switch the mesh while doing this. So I'm just going to quick save, because I don't know if it will work. If we go on to Topology, Edit Topology. If we go into rigging, actually turn off topology, go into rigging, press select mesh. If we jump back to this guy, select our original beard, jump back to our Z sphere with the rigging going, and then we can go rigging, select mesh, and then select the beard. Go on to topology and press edit topology, and well, hey, it worked. So I honestly didn't expect that to work, but the good thing is we can actually now make this solid, so we can work around the back now. So we used the merged mesh with the face and everything to get the beard lines, and now we switched over to the original Dynamesh beard. And we can continue editing on here. I honestly didn't expect that to work, so that's quite useful to remember. Picked up a little trick there. Got a lot of polygons coming to a termination point down here, so it's going to be interesting to see how we can deal with that. It's into quite a dense area of polygons. Whether that's something we want or not, not quite sure at this point. So I've still got a bit of a sore throat. blame work. So let's get these sections finished off. So I recently had a lot of questions from my hard surface tutorial about why I don't use Z-remesher. Mostly, as you've probably gathered by now, I'm old-fashioned, which sounds weird to say, but over the last, what, maybe 4 iterations of ZBrush, something like that, there's been a bunch of new features in there, which I either didn't know were there, or haven't had time to learn, or didn't give me the results that I was after without a lot of tweaking. Back in the previous version of ZBrush, when the Z-remesher was called Q-remesher, when it was just more of a plugin than anything and not really developed from the ground up. Q-remesher was okay. It tended to give me sort of alright results for speed sculpts, but using it on anything which I'd like at a higher quality, it took a lot of controlling using the guide brushes and things like that. Control painting and things, and still the results would need editing in an external program like Maya or Max. But I kind of just got to the point where Q-remesher was nice to have, but wasn't a part of my essential toolset. And I found myself just going back to this tedious old way of doing retopology, because I've improved a lot with topology over the years. I was absolutely terrible at it to begin with, but I understand the edge flows now and the way that things behave and the way that ZBrush behaves. So it's what I know, and it's what I know will give me the results. During my hard surface modelling, I did try Z-remesher as a quick test before I started recording the retopology sections, mostly to see if it would be a good use of my time to actually do it, rather than seeing me fiddle around for, I think it must have been about 2 hours trying to get things to work properly. As it was a long enough workshop anyway, I decided to go with the standard topology workflow, just because it worked, you know. Now, Z-remesher, it does a whole lot better job than its previous iteration as Q-remesher, but again, it still takes a bit of fiddling. Now, for concept sculpts and things, it's absolutely fantastic. I use it in my creature workshop, because it did an absolute fantastic job of just evening out the surface and putting things where I actually needed them, putting polygons where I needed them. But again, I'm old-fashioned. I'm yet to use Q-remesher to its full potential, so I'll probably be experimenting with that sort of privately, offline, with no videos, and once I've kind of got a workflow which suits like the accuracy that I need, as well as the speed that Q-remesher can give it, I'll share a video about it. But until then, you're going to have to put up with the standard retopology methods, because it's what I know. It's what I know will work 100%. And as a result, we don't spend too much time fiddling. So I'm just going to terminate these points now. I'm going to start putting this to a point, so we're still using quads. So just going to bring that in there. Let's just move these around a bit so it's a little bit more pleasing. Again, reduce the brush size. If you have troubles with the brush still being too big, even at 1, right click and press dynamic, and that'll turn off dynamic brush size. Let's see if we can get this looking pretty even down the bottom. Oh dear, there we go. I don't know what happens sometimes, it will just randomly hide what you did. Just press undo after you finish panicking. Alright, it seems I'm kind of missing an edge flow here, so it's going to be a big gap, and we're going to have to... oh lordy, it looks like we're going to have a triangle. Oh well. I could just put another edge loop in there, but I'd have to go all the way up here, so cannot be bothered with that. Okay, so let's see what we've got. Go to adaptive skin, turn the density down to 1, so we're not subdividing it, and we can hit preview. So we have a beard. Yeah, it's not bad. I don't think I really need to add any thickness to it, but I am going to sort of bring these sections in so that it does sort of go into the face a little bit. So I'm just going to put a couple of random, well, not so much random, but a couple of polys in here which will allow me to embed it into the face, so that when we start sculpting and we start moving it around, we don't get any strange holes appearing and things like that. I think we need to sort of fill in the back anyway, otherwise we'll be able to see that there's a hole in the beard. So remember, as I said, ZBrush is actually slightly intelligent. If we hit A there, it will fill in those gaps which we left. So a little bit handy. There's no need to connect every single edge. Sometimes I do it just because, well, it's part of my flow, if you like. You know, you just get into a rhythm and it just happens automatically, for lack of a better way to put it. No, don't want to do that. Undo. Okay, so we now have a beard. Just join these bits up over here. Again, don't want to do that. I think it's coming down from me holding down, when it comes to my Wacom button setup, I think I'm pressing Control Shift, which is hide, rather than just Control, which is mask, which allows me to select these vertices, and that's where it's going wrong. So keep that in mind. If you're using a Wacom, you've got some buttons set up. Okay, so we have a beard. Got a hole in it, but we don't really care because it doesn't matter, we're only going to be sculpting on the surface. So that's good. Just going to hit preview. We're going to press make polymesh 3D. We're going to jump back to our dude. We're going to go to subtools. We're going to turn off this merged version. In fact, I'm going to delete it altogether as it's no longer relevant. And turn on its upper torso and turn off the original beard. Going to press append and choose our new PM3D Z-Sphere 1 beard. And now we're just going to find out where I put it, right at the bottom. Ah, it's inverted. Okay, that's no big deal. If you get anything looking like this, it just means that the normals have been flipped. So basically that means the surface of the polygon is pointing inwards rather than outwards. So to do that, we go down to I believe it's not visibility. It's in, where is it? Display properties. So we go to display properties, and we press flip, and that'll flip the normals around to behave as they should be. So there we go. We have a beard. We've got a few polygons going into the face, which will help us blend things together. And overall, it's a lot tidier than the Dynamesh one. So we should be able to get some nice sculpting going on. So I'm going to delete the original beard, as again, that's no longer needed. Working on game characters before, I've found definitely keep everything as organized as you can, because when we start using insert mesh brushes and things like that, we're going to be making duplicates of things just to make them work. So then we're going to be splitting things off and creating individual tools. So I do have a character with about 50 subtools, and managing it can be a bit of a pain. So keep that in mind. Keep everything organized as much as you can. So it looks like we've still got a gap in that beard. Let's just go fill that in. Let's just delete this beard again. I'm going to go back to our Z-Sphere 1. Going to hit A to go back into topology mode. So it's this section around here. Obviously we need to bring it in a little bit further. So let's start doing that. Oops. I'd love to know why it does that as well sometimes. Yeah, there are a lot of quirks to ZBrush. It's one of those things that you eventually get used to. You never quite understand why some things happen, but as long as you know how to fix them, usually the undo button does just that. But things happen. There's no explanation as to why. You're not even sure what has happened, but it's just a quirk of ZBrush. I've been recommended to use Mudbox before, but I've also, I struggle to find time to do these videos for everybody. So finding time to learn yet another program from scratch, it's not something which is really on my to-do list. So there we go, it's a bit more solid. So again, make Polymesh 3D, head back to our subtools, append, and we'll click the latest beard, the one with the back. Again, it's flipped. So display properties, flip. Oh, got the eyes selected, that was silly. I think I've kind of screwed up the eyes there. One sec. Yeah, flip the eyes. Let's just flip the eyes back. Make sure you select your subtools before you do that. Select the beard, display properties, flip. There we go. Okay, so we have a full beard now, no gaps. Brilliant. Okie dokie, so that's the most part of the beard done. The rest is all the fun stuff. So we're going to do the fun stuff now and start figuring out where bits and pieces are going to go. While I'm here, in low res, if we have a look at the polygroups, just as so we can have a look at the wireframe really, I can see that if we grab the move tool, Let's dock that palette back down. See that we've got a ring around here, an edge ring, ring loop, whatever you want to call it, ring loop I think it is. Okay, we need to activate symmetry, and it's going to mirror and weld because I've just moved it, so there we go. We have this ring here, and according to our concept, it's going to have some sort of beads there which are keeping it in this position. So while we're here in low res, we might as well go ahead and extract that. So let's turn on transparency for now. We're going to hold down Control and Shift and just select this ring there. Select it all the way around. That's good. Then we're going to do an extract. So we're going to go to Subtool and press Extract. Choose a thickness. We don't want it double-sided. We only want it single-sided. And we're not bothered about the smoothing. So we're going to press Extract. It's a little bit too thick by the looks of things. Yeah, a little bit. Let's turn the thickness down. Press Extract again. That'll do. Press Accept. So a little note about smooth. It will actually smooth out the mesh for you, and we don't want to do that. We want control of that over ourselves. So let's unhide the rest of the beard. We're just going to rename the beard so we can keep track of it. Let's move that back up to the upper torso so we can keep things sort of regimented. We'll put the feet below the trousers, and we'll put this up just below the beard. Turn on transparency. So now these edges are going to be automatically creased for us, so we can always smooth them down without any fear of it smoothing over for us, which is good. So with that in place, we can start having some fun with the beard, start putting some details and things in. Now when it comes to hair and sort of the flow of hair, you kind of want to work from the bottom up. This will make sense in a moment. Let's just turn off polyframe, Shift F, and we're just going to divide. Hit divide a couple of times. When it comes to hair, I like using, no surprise, the clay build tool, sometimes the clay tube tool. We'll give the clay tube tool a bit of a go today. I'm going to turn dynamic brush size on again. Now, for those who don't know what dynamic brush size is, it means that it will keep your brush the same size no matter the distance you are from the mesh. So if I turn off dynamic brush size and I get a big brush, say I was doing some detailing with this size brush, but I need to zoom out to get a little bit more space. If you have a look at the size of this brush, basically the width of his mouth. If I zoom out, it stays the same size relative to the screen, so now the brush is the same size as his entire head. So if I want to carry on sculpting a detail, I've then got to reduce the brush size back down to something that was around about the same size, which you're never going to do perfectly. Dynamic brush size, however, if we just resize this to about the same size as his mouth, if we activate dynamic brush size, of course you've got to reset that first, so get your brush size right after pressing dynamic. So that's about right. Now no matter what distance I am from the mesh, it's going to be the same size relative to the mesh. No matter how close I am or how far away. If you're putting some seams on some clothes or something and you need to rotate your character around and zoom out a bit to get a better view, it's going to keep exactly the same size brush. So that is really handy when it comes to things like doing seams on clothes and stuff like that. So let's just start getting a few layers in here. As I said, working backwards is the best way because we'll layer things on top. So we want to sort of bring a layer down here to sort of follow the curve of the beard and the way that it flows. And this is me ignoring what I just said to myself and work backwards. We want to really start at the bottom and move up. because when we start working from the top, it'll layer. It's not quite so obvious when we're at a low resolution, but I'll demonstrate some more once we subdivide a bit more. So just kind of getting indications of shape and texture in there. Again, we're not very, we're not subdivided a lot at the moment, so it doesn't really matter for the time being. So we can see where we want the flow of the moustache coming from. And then we've got the flow of the beard coming from beneath the chin, well, the chin area. That's great. So, subdivide. You see things are starting to get a little bit wobbly. That's because we didn't have an edge flow down there, which kind of takes into account the moustache. Which I should have done really, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to get more polygons on here, and that's not going to make much of a difference. So we can start blending this into the cheeks. So it's a little bit more uneven. Adds a little bit more realism to it. I'm going to switch over to clay build, as I just generally prefer the way that this brush interacts with the mesh. Don't know why, it's just my favourite. Smooth things out a bit. Actually, right click, hold down shift and right click rather. Drag the intensity of the smooth brush down, as we don't want to affect things too much. So you can see when you work from the bottom up, you start to get some natural layering going on, just from the way that the clay brushes behave. So we're going to use this brush just to kind of get up a bit of a flow. Let's see if we can merge these in a little bit more convincingly. It's going to be pretty hard on the underside of the chin, but it's going to be integrated into the mesh anyway, so it's not too important. It's not going to be something you see too much of. I might even just fill it in so it's just kind of a very bulky bushy beard. Oops. So there are many ways you can do hair and beards and things like that. This is going to give a bit of a stylized result, which is kind of what I'm after anyway. You could use fiber mesh. God knows how you'd get that into a game though. I know the latest Tomb Raider game uses the AMD Tress Effects technology to create polygonal hair, which, you know, deforms and reacts to physics and things, and I know there was a similar kind of thing in Alice Returns, American McGee's Alice game, the last one. I don't know how they work. Simple as that, really. I don't think I have a game engine which is capable of it. Possibly Unreal, the UDK could do it, but I don't know if you'd need any special plugins or anything like that. I know things can be done with tessellation, a DirectX 11 feature in games, which sort of basically subdivides meshes depending on how close they are. Sorry about that. Picked up the phone and there's no one there. So, as I was saying, I think I was saying, yes, with the UDK I'm sure there's a way to do tessellated hair, and that's what I was talking about, tessellation. Tessellation is basically what ZBrush does, it subdivides a mesh. In a game it will subdivide the mesh and increase the poly count of certain areas of the mesh. So usually the facial areas and things with, you know, a lot of focus on them. And they'll also use displacement maps to help sort of deform that surface a little bit more accurately. Haven't used it on a character before, but I've done a little bit of tessellation and displacement in Unity for environments, and it works pretty well. I can't really figure out where I'd use it, as it doesn't really add that much to it. Reason being, I'm not a professional game developer. I don't know how on the technical side of that whether I'm implementing it right, because there's not too much documentation on it. I might see if I can get it to work during this video, but I'll have to do some research into it first of all. So, see how that goes. Alright, so just starting to sculpt in a few sort of clumps of hair, sort of the main areas of the hair, of the beard. Starting to get a little bit of a flow to it now. Start to see it's got very thick hair. The thing is, I think these bits sort of come to too much of a ball at the end. They need to sort of be stretched out. So I'm going to go to the brush menu and go to Move. Press M on the keyboard and select the Move Elastic. Now this will kind of stretch things sort of weirdly at first. It's a very cool brush. It's great when doing some like monster concepts and things. In fact, you probably saw me use it in my creature workshop, if you followed that. And it basically just kind of randomly stretches. I can't seem to work out any sort of method to the way that it figures out what to stretch, but it kind of has this elastic effect on the rest of the mesh. So if you pull apart, it'll also pull certain parts of the other with a bit of a fall off to it. And yeah, so you can kind of tease things out and shape them a bit more randomly, which works really well for hair sometimes, if you don't make it look like an ice cream cone. Just going to smooth that back. So you can see we've got a lot of polygons in this area. Let's just go grab the clay build, just kind of add a little bit more texture into that. Smooth it down. Going to drop a subdivision level. Let's see if I can tidy this up. So this is what happens when you have an area with high polygon density. You get, well, a lot of polygons in one area, as you may well expect, which when subdivided gives you a massive amount of detail to play with on that section. But if you don't want detail in that section, then you know, you've kind of got wasted polygons. Unfortunately, I do. I might add some braids to this or something. So we'll see how that plays out. So just jump back up another subdivision level. So I can grab clay build, start adding some texture back into here. And once again, jump back up the subdivision level. And you can see the difference in the surface down here. Probably should have terminated the polygons a little bit sooner than actually leading them all down to this point, but no matter. We've got plenty of polygons to play with, so it should be alright. Let's just divide it again. Now you can see we're starting to get into the really fine realms now. This is where I switch over to my Damien Standard brush. Start cutting in. So this is where I can start identifying individual strands and such like that, or really accentuating the sort of individual flow of the hairs. So, yep, just following the flow of the beard, kind of really bringing things out. So put in some deep flow lines. There we go. So I think we're done at this kind of level. Okay, I'm not going to do the full detailing pass yet because we've still got to do the rest of everything else. So just sort of get this moustache. Sort of. You can use the Damien Standard brush to kind of embed things. So it looks like the kind of, you know, originating from a section. So the more you kind of push and pull at the edges, you can kind of get this sort of feathered look, so it looks like it is actually coming out of his skin, which is, after all, what facial hair does. So it's the kind of effect you want to go for. So that's going to do us for now. I think I might just subdivide these little beady parts. So I'm just going to divide those so we can get a bit of an overall look of how how it will come together. And you can see it's starting to get there. Next we're going to move on to the apron, as that's the next major section really. I tend to work from the top to the bottom, so I'll start with the face and the upper body, then the torso, and then we'll work our way down to the bottom. So, join me in chapter 5, guys, and we'll be working on the apron. We'll gain some nice details in there and see where things take us. We'll then go on to gloves, boots, gloves, trousers, boots, that sort of thing. We'll get the upper torso all finished first. And then we'll go into a detail pass over the whole lot, where we'll bring everything up to scratch. So, I hope you found things useful there, guys. Again, comments, questions, drop them in the comment section. And until next time, happy sculpting.